Okay, so we're going over page 80. This is page 80. The practice quiz 1 through 16, and then I added in a few extra problems as extra practice. So number 1 says a number z minus 6. So there's our operation. Z minus 6 is greater than or equal to. That's our greater than or equal to symbol, 11. That one's pretty straightforward. Number 2 is a little less, 12. When it says is no more than, not more than, it would be less than. So that's less than the sum of, and we have 1.5 times the number w and 4. So we're going to add this multiplication to 4. And that multiplication is negative 1.5 times w and plus the 4. Number 3, write an inequality it represents. So 0 is our number. The shaded part represents our variable, so I'm just going to label it x. X, and our endpoint is 0. And so the numbers here are numbers that are less than 0, right? So the shading, the x's are less than 0, so less than, and it's an open circle, so it's not equal to. Remember that greater than and less than without the line underneath, the not equal to are open circles. And then greater than or equal to and less than or equal to are closed. So they would look like this. Okay, and then remember this is greater than, and these are less than. So those little things help. And number 4, we have 8 is our threshold, and the shading represents, let's say, P. It doesn't really matter what letter you use. And so the shading is bigger than 9, 10, 11. Those are bigger numbers than 8. So it's greater than. The circle is closed, so it's greater than or equal to. So P is greater than or equal to 8. Now you could write 8 is less than or equal to P as well. And you could write 0 is greater than X. I like these ones with my variable first. Number 5. 9 plus q is less than or equal to 15. So I need to get q by itself. So I want to get rid of the 9. The 9 is positive, so I'm going to subtract 9. Oops. Let's use a pen here. Minus 9 from both sides. And we get q less than or equal to 15. On a number line, I'm just going to put 0 and 15 on my number line here. It's less than or equal to, that means it's going to be a closed circle. And numbers less than 15 include 0, so the numbers less than are to the left. Number 6. Z minus negative 7 is less than 5. So Z is plus 7 minus 5. Let's make that plus positive. So we know what operation we need to do to get it by itself. We're going to subtract the 7. And Z is less than negative 2. And on a number line, we have 0 and negative 2 on the left. Less than is an open circle. And numbers smaller than negative 2 would not be 0. 0 is larger, so it's on the other side. Negative 3, negative 4, those are the numbers that are smaller than negative 2. Number 7, negative 3 less than y minus 4. We're going to add 4 and do that addition. So we get 1 is less than y. Like I said, I like my variable first, so I write y is greater than 1. Then I put on my number line. Greater than is an, oops, wrong place. Greater than is an open circle on the 1. And numbers that are bigger are 2, 3, 4, and those are the numbers to the right. So that's why my number line is shaded. Number 8. 3p is greater than or equal to 18. So this is 3 times p. The inverse, the opposite operation is dividing by 3. And we get p is greater than or equal to 6. Greater than or equal to is a closed circle. Greater than is 7, 8, 9, and 10. So I'm going to shade to the right. Number 9. 6 is greater than or equal to w divided by negative 2. Now that's divided by, so don't think of it as a fraction reciprocal, think of it as divide, so I'm going to multiply by negative 2. And I'm multiplying by a negative number. That's super important to recognize because when that happens, my inequality has to switch. So w is greater than or equal to negative 12. Negative 12 is less than or equal to w. Remember that we can read them both directions. W is greater than negative 12. Negative 12 is less than w. And if I want to draw that on a number line, I have 0 and negative 12. And so we have a closed circle because it's less than or equal to. And negative 12 is less than the w's. That means w's are bigger. So we're shading to 0. 0 would make this true. And that's the side I want to shade on, right? Negative 12 is less than or equal to 0. This is true, so I'm going to shade by the 0. That's another way to figure out where you're going to shade. You plug in a number to see which side of the dot it's true on. And then number 10, move some things up here. In case it doesn't want to let me do that. Number 10, negative 20x is greater than 5. Divide by negative 20. And x is less than, I divided by this negative, so I need to flip the sign, less than negative 1/4 or negative 0.25. I want to show you an example that's not on here because this is where students get confused. If we say 2x is greater than negative 10, okay, so this is just an extra. Here we would divide it by 2, but I'm dividing by a positive 2, so my sign does not change. It's still greater than negative 5. My sign doesn't change because I divided by a positive number. I didn't divide by a negative. It was negative 10 divided by positive 2. And then let's draw these number lines here. 0 and negative 0.25. Open circles. And less than would be negative 1, negative 2, negative 3. And then this one, negative 5 and 0. Greater than, open circle, greater than is negative 4, negative 3, negative 2, negative 1, 0. Those numbers that are to the right. Okay, so pay attention to the instructions. Tomorrow if it says solve and graph, you need to draw the answer on the number line as well. Number 11, sorry for the poor quality of my picture here. I have 3y minus 7 is greater than or equal to 17. So solving inequalities is the same process as solving equations. The only thing that's different is that flipping the sign when we divide by a negative. So here we're going to undo the addition first by adding 7. And then we're going to get 3y because negative 7 plus 7 is 0. And 17 plus 7 is 24. And then we're going to get undo the multiplication by dividing by 3. Divide by 3. And y is greater than or equal to 8. I divided by a positive, so I don't need to do any flipping. So 0 and 8. I don't know why it keeps doing that on me. And closed circle because it's greater than or equal to. And numbers greater than 8 do not include 0. They include 9, 10, and 11, so we shade to the right. Number 12. 8 times 3g minus 2 less than or equal to 12 times 2g plus 1. So we need to distribute. 8 to the 3g is 24g, and 8 times 2, 16, so minus 16, less than or equal to, let's distribute the 12. So we get 24g plus 12. And we talked about undoing distribution, doing distribution first, and then combining like terms. Well, like terms includes numbers on the same side of the inequality or equal sign, and I don't have those like terms. And then getting my variables on one side. So let's subtract 24g. And when I do that, I end up with 0 and 0 for my g's. I end up with the statement negative 16 is less than or equal to 12, to positive 12. Well, this is true. When we have a true statement, every number we plug in for g is going to work. So we say all real numbers. And yes, that does mean that there are numbers that are not real. We call them imaginary numbers, and that's something we learn about in Algebra 2. Number 13. I'm also going to distribute. I get 12x minus 6. Distribute again. Is greater than or equal to 12x plus 3. And we subtract 12x, getting my variables on one side. Negative 6 is greater than or equal to positive 3. This is false, which means no value for x is going to work, and that is no solution. Okay, now let's look at some word problems. Move this over a little bit. 3 requirements for a lifeguard training course are shown. That's this picture over here. Swim at least 100 yards, tread water for at least 5 minutes, swim 10 yards or more underwater without taking a breath. So for each one, it says write and graph 3 inequalities that represent the requirements. So for graph 1, swim at least 100 yards. So at least means 100 yards or more, right? 90 yards would not be good enough. So for swim at least 100 yards, we'll say S is greater than or equal to 100. For tread water for at least 5 minutes, we'll say T, at least again, is greater than or equal to 5. And swim underwater, I'll use U. For 10 yards or more again, is greater than or equal to 10. And let's look at this on a number line. 100, closed circle, shaded that way, greater than 100, more than 100. And this one, let me do that in black. 5, greater than or equal to 5. Everything more than 5. And here, 10. Okay, so greater than or equal to 10 is a closed circle, and greater than is this way. Then part B says you can swim 250 feet, tread water for 6 minutes, and swim 35 feet underwater without taking a breath. Do you satisfy the requirements? So, is 250 greater than or equal to 100? Yes. Is 6 minutes greater than or equal to 5 minutes treading water? Yes. And is 35 feet greater than 10 yards? Ooh, this is 35 feet. How many feet is 10 yards? 10 yards times 3 feet per yard is 30 feet. So 35 feet is greater than or equal to 30 feet, which is 10 yards. So yes, you satisfy the requirements for this job. Number 15, the maximum volume of an American white pelican's bill is about 700 cubic inches. So max volume, that means it's less than or equal to 700. A pelican scoops up 100 cubic inches of water. Write an inequality that represents the additional volumes the pelican's bill can hold. So we have 100 cubic inches of water plus an unknown amount, let's let it be W, and that is got to be less than or equal to 700. And then it says to solve it, so we'll subtract 100, and W is less than or equal to 600. This was number 15. You save $15 per week to purchase one of the bikes shown. Write and solve an inequality to find the number of weeks you need to save to purchase the bike. So you're $15 per week. So that's times, per, the word is times, week, X will be the number of weeks. And you need that to be more than, because if the bike starts at $120, you have to have at least $120 or more. So 15x is greater than or equal to 120. If we solve this, divide by 15, x is greater than or equal to 8. So you need to save for 8 weeks. Then it says your parents give you $165 to help you buy the new bike. How does it affect your answer? So if you have 15 times the number of weeks you're saving plus the 65, that has to be greater than or equal to 120. That's how it's going to change that, right? You'll need to save for a lot less time if you have $65 to add to that. It doesn't actually say to solve it, but we will. We'll subtract the 65. And 15x is greater than or equal to 55. Divide by 15. And x is greater than or equal to, let's divide by 5, sorry. 11 thirds, which is 3 and 2/3 of a week. So you have to save for just about 4 weeks, and then you would have enough money to buy the bike now. And lastly, here's a couple extra problems to look at. Number 18. These are from page 77. 8n plus 2 less than or equal to 8n minus 9. We're going to get our variables on one side first. So we get 2 is less than or equal to negative 9. This is false. When it's false, there are no numbers that make it work, so there's no solution. Number 20. 8 plus 10f is greater than 14 minus 2f. Okay, we have variables on both sides, so we're going to add 2f to both sides. So we have 8 plus 12f greater than 14. Now we'll move our constant to the other side. So we get 12f is greater than 14 minus 8 is 6. Divide by 12. And f is greater than 1/2. If I want to draw that on a number line, I have an open circle. Greater than is 1, 2, and 3. Those numbers are to the right. Number 24, we're going to distribute. So we get 10c minus 14 greater than or equal to 10c minus 30. And so we'll subtract the 10c to get our variables on one side, and they all cancel out. So we get negative 14 is greater than or equal to negative 30, which is true, which means every number for c will work, all real numbers. Okay, and lastly, number 26, which I just did, but I wasn't recording. So we're going to distribute the 15. We get 15 times 1/3, put a 1 underneath the 15. I get 15 over 3, which is 5b. plus 15 times 3 is 45, less than or equal to 6b plus 54. And we're going to minus the 6b. We have negative b plus 45, less than or equal to 54. Minus the 45, negative b is less than or equal to 9. Divide by negative 1. When we divide by the negative, the sign changes to greater than or equal to negative 9. And then negative 9, 0, solid circle, closed circle, greater than negative 9 is towards the 0, so it's to the right.